The Collapse of America. Foundations establishing the cause and the deep reasons for the collapse of America as a civilization, as a culture, as a country, as a unified power, as an economy. Now, political economy is the foundation of all else that follows, whether it allows or disallows private or public sphere, states, federation, union, a constitution, law, freedoms, and so on. But what an early commentator on America, Alexis de Tocqueville, discovered in his examination of the new country, their constitution and their new way of life. He was writing for a French audience who were most concerned with the revolutionary discussions, tropes and metaphors for society that have now been, at this stage, been going on for 150, 200 or more years. And for a number of decades before that. Now, America is founded on a constitution where the people vote through a complex system, but whether it's a complex or a simple direct voting system, the tendency, he noticed, is apparent in all people-led, the mass of the people-led governments, is that politicians have to sell themselves to the people with attractive policies, and there's the tendency built in to democracy to give the people what they want, not necessarily what the nation needs or what the people, for the people are the nation, need. So these two agendas are somewhat in conflict. Whichever party is in power, sometimes leftish parties, socialistic parties behave in a more business-like way, and sometimes business parties and so on behave in a more welfare way. The Republican Party in America, for instance, often thought to be the other to the Democrats, was the party of Abraham Lincoln and the party of the releasing of the slaves. So history tells another story, and parties and so on swap over. And in fact, if you come from these concepts that derive from the French Chamber of Deputies, the French government, the concept of left and right have historically swapped over. So what was once left is now right, and what was once right is now left, and so on. So these terms are possibly not as useful as people think. And we see in the cycle of nations around us and the upbeat tempo of history that these processes occur very rapidly, where the people award themselves, even in a social democratic government, like the people's democracies of the communist regime in Russia, you see very generous social welfare and then a collapse. The workers, had workers' cabins, workers' holidays, workers' paradise, holidays on the Black Sea. and that kind of thing, all paid for by the state. Very generous and great if it could continue, but does it continue today? No, it doesn't continue today, not with that level of generosity. Maybe the oil companies in Russia can afford, and the gas companies can afford that for some of its more executive workers, management and so on, but certainly not for the workers of Russia as a whole. And again we see the cycle in Greece, the recent collapse of Greece. Very generous social welfare provisions, giving people what they want, not what the Greek economy needed, and we have an outright collapse of defaulting of government, and people having to demand or request only half the due debt owed to them from previous borrowings and lendings, and so on and so forth, because of the Greek economy is in a shambles through this over-generosity tendency. And this tendency of democracy is built into democracy. Even Western capitalist, so-called capitalist democracy, it's built in. So democracy has this strange beast built into it. It has this communistic tendency, this social welfare tendency built into it. You could speak of democracy as being communism by stealth. Communism obviously is founded on violent revolution. That's undeniable wherever communism has occurred. But is social welfare redistribution any different in the West? No, not really. It's done by stealth. But eventually it throttles and chokes the very mechanisms of production, of wealth creation. So you get the standard things that you saw very clearly, and the paper's now available to world scholars from the Kremlin, where it shows that basically the managers of Joseph Stalin were lying to him, telling him what he wanted to hear. So in the West you have productivity figures, but I for one don't believe them. I think we're being told what we want to hear. The government officials are telling each other what they want to hear, and they're even framing their own hearts and minds and thoughts and statistics. They're buffering it, buffing it up to, making projections and emphasising a projection rather than a current reality, and all kinds of mechanisms like this in terms of presenting a productivity, a plausible productivity that just isn't true by any standardised measure going deep back into the past. We're failing. And this is the condition of the West as a whole, and it is related, as I've said before, to the collapsing of populations. It is population that maintains, population pressure maintains asset values. And you have that out of your economy, and it's over, you're finished. You must collapse, you will collapse. And it's not a matter of sheer numbers, increasing in numbers in the country, because if you have a column and then you just thicken the column, you have the same problems but a few sideways issues like rising property prices and rising rentals and other complicated matters like that. But you don't increase the dynamic you really need, which is the relationship between a column and a broad skirt, so that you have more taxpayers coming on to afford all the luxuries that the column is requiring. The benefits and the insurance and the accident insurance and the death protections and so on and so forth, for longevity, for hospitals, etc. You need more young people under 15, a category you only get in a pro-natalist society. Now you can run a society that is a column, a columnar society, without this intergenerational dynamic between the column and the skirt, between the column and the vertical column and the horizontal base of births coming on. And this argument of mine is absolute It works after a generation. That's when you have the downside. We've reached that point now. A generation here being defined as 40 years. You know, Russia could function as a progressive country for 40 years, but they spent the last 30 years of its existence downgrading. You know, until eventually, you know, as the decades rolled by, the state stores could not even deliver sausages, eggs, or cheese, or sugar to its people. Could not, they were not available. They were simply not available in those last 2 or 3 decades of the Soviet Union. Now, this is a gross failure of governance, and population depredation is the definite cause of it. This is what people wanted. They wanted to fornicate away and have sex, free love and all that. It started off in the 60s with the pill, and then the contraception, sterilisation and abortion acts of various countries, and legislation allowing those things. That is the basis for the collapse of democracy. Democracy, in my mind, on that basis, where all the women vote and all the men vote, has no reality to it whatsoever. Thank you.